So for today's session, I wanted to give Flowers by Miley Cyrus the Vancouver Sleep Clinic treatment. Get it? Because clinic treatment. I bet you can't wait for Will to be back. Hi there, I'm Maya Yen. I'm an independent artist, songwriter and producer, and I have the great honour today of guest hosting Inspired By. Welcome to my humble little studio. So today we're looking at the artist Vancouver Sleep Clinic, otherwise known as Pop Goes Ambient. He works a lot with Emilia Magdalena on these beautiful, luxuriant, ambient, expanded tracks. With around 2.5 million monthly listeners, a lot of them are songs you already know. Ambient goes pop, kind of does what it says on the tin. I've noticed with the tracks that Vancouver Sleep Clinic puts out that they'll really play up the melancholic atmosphere of an existing song. So I think the way to go about it with Flowers, which is obviously sonically very, very upbeat, it's basically disco. For this, we're going to slow it right down. I wanted to play up the melancholic atmosphere of Flowers in the same way that Vancouver Sleep Clinic does. So I slightly reharmonized it very subtly. So the fourth chord in the progression is actually the relative minor. So if it was a true to the original version, it would be C sharp major, but we're going to use F minor, and there's a grace chord in the G sharp, leading us back into the B flat minor. And the relative minor, grace chord, and then back. So I just wanted to give that a little bit of texture. I've added this hybrid synth. Sent quite a lot of it to the delay, as you can hear. So let's hear that together. So you're getting the smooth with this kind of crunchy warped texture, which I love. And that's Melted Vibes, which is on Complete Control. The other thing I've noticed in Vancouver Sleep Clinic's tracks is the use of drones. So I'm really liking this drone sound, but we need to switch it up when we go into the chorus. So we've pulled back here, just carved out a little bit of space. And then it's going to come back a little bit fuller this time. So I've put it on two separate tracks, panned one to the left and one to the right. And I've pitched down this one on the right here. I've also noticed that in Vancouver Sleep Clinic's tracks, occasionally he'll bring in some strings. So we're throwing some strings in there. And this is a free plugin. It's Spitfire. We love Spitfire. Really nice and simple, just the chords. And we're going to throw some Valhalla on there too, just for that extra wetness. Really expand it out, really luxuriant. So next, the bass. This is a really simple one. So we've got this one on top, and we've got a sub on the bottom. And just to make sure that those two bass tracks don't fight with each other in the mix, added these EQs. So on this top one here, we've just got the high end, and we're rolling off those bottom frequencies kind of 100 and below. And on the sub, we want those low end sounds, so they're staying in there. Tiny bit of Gullfoss and tiny bit of glue compressor just to gel it all together. So let's talk about drums. So this is the kick I'm using. It's got a little bit of texture on it. And then just to give that kick a little bit more to it, I've added this second one. So on its own, it sounds like this. Whereas that first one is pretty expanded. So laid up a few snares there. So you get this really crunchy feeling. So I also found this sound. just kind of a rim shot, but quite woody. So I'm actually going to roll off all of the bottom end of that. So it's just really top end and just slightly spike it there around sort of 3K, 3K. So it's just really the high end there. It's always fun to mix up those kind of hi-hats or high-end drums. So put in this shakery chop sound. We're also going to add in an actual hi-hat for that really top end, that sort of woody sound that we had before. And our open hi-hat. I use a lot of samples from objects I find in the house a lot of the time for my drums. So what's really helpful for me is using the Ableton corpus, which has tons of different options for drums. And it's just a really quick treatment to really tighten things up, make them sound more like what you want them to sound like. So I've added one here, which is just going to punch up the snare, give it a little bit more beef. Pretty subtle difference, but you can hear it's a little bit fuller, it has a little bit more texture to it, and it fits that kind of lo-fi ambient sort of vibe a little bit better. So, let's have a look at the vocals.
Oh, just before you do, Maya. Just before you do, I just want to tell our guests about DistroKid. What, you thought I wasn't going to mention them today? DistroKid make it so easy to get your music on hundreds of platforms. You know the deal by now. They've got promo tools that help you get your music out into a wider audience. If you want to join us on DistroKid and get 7% off your first year, then visit the description below. I'm moving house.
All right, so we've got the lead vocal here. We were good. No treatment. We were gold. So it's really close to the mic, as you can hear. I actually don't use de-esser at all when I'm recording vocals, and that's just a preference thing. So what I do is I use a pop shield, but I tend to angle the mic like this, sort of diagonally or slightly away from me, so that I'm not talking directly into it, where you're likely to get more plosives and more S's, as you can hear. So if you sing more like this, we were good. So you don't get as many of the really horrible plosives, but you do get the nice ASMR-y D's and T's. We were good. So I'm going to EQ this and just take out those nastier frequencies. A little bit of Gullfoss. Once again, it's probably my favorite plugin. Does a lot of the hard work for you. It's great. Just throw it on there. And just a gentle compressor as well. So it's a really simple vocal chain. There's not a lot to it. And then we're going to add the reverb in the group itself. We were good. So the other thing I really wanted to add to the lead vocal here is a little bit of formant automation, something that Vancouver Sleep Clinic does occasionally in his tracks. Kind of dream that can't be so. So literally all that is little altar boy. Literally all I've done is put the formant all the way down to -12, set the mix to 100% wet on a second track there. Kind of dream that can't be sure. Obviously, Vancouver Sleep Clinic has a much lower voice than mine, so just to give it that kind of lower, warmer tone, this is a really nice way to just cheat that. Harmonies. This is your high harmony. I can buy myself flowers. So you can see there, pretty much one note, that one. I'm not over enunciating the ends of words. And the reason for that is it is a total nightmare when you're lining up vocals in a mix, as I'm sure many of you will know, to line up those ends of consonants and that kind of thing. So all you really need the harmonies to do is give you a different pitch value. So we don't need to over enunciate. Same thing for this lower harmony. I can buy myself flowers. Write my name in the sand. So let's hear that with the lead. I can buy myself flowers. Write my name in the sand. If you struggle with writing harmonies at all, I really break it down for myself when I'm writing them. Write out the complete lead line in MIDI. I bring in the chords as MIDI. Just double up the lead MIDI there, obviously imitating the vocal. And from there, I can kind of audition out different harmonies just using those MIDI notes. And it saves you kind of recording tons of harmonies, getting them in the mix and going, oh, that's the wrong note, or that sounds awful. The other thing I added to the vocal are just some kind of little moments where there's a lot of delay and a lot of echo that we can kind of really just let breathe and expand out. I don't wanna leave. Pretty classic production technique. And then you've got these really huge moments of little vocal chops with huge ping pong delay. I don't wanna lie. Started to cry, but then remembered Let's hear how it's sounding going into the chorus. You could keep adding to this and make a really thick vocal stack that would sound amazing and very choral. With Vancouver Sleep Clinic though, they tend to keep the vocal tracks pretty minimal, just so it really heightens that vulnerability and sense of vulnerability with the vocal. So that's what I'm trying to emulate here with the lead, the double with the formant automation, and then the alto and the tenor harmonies, and that's it. So I hope that's useful. All the stems will be available for you to look at. Thanks so much to Will and the whole community for having me. This has been a real joy. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I hope to see you again next time. I think I'm done. I think that's it, right? It's a lot of footage. I'm really sorry.